Sanitization.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start out with a few problems first. Let me switch to my DocCan. Now, we're going to need to talk again about how linear equations and slope works. So the reason I'm definitely going to record this and post this on YouTube so that as you are trying to work on this stuff, you don't drive yourself mad. Okay, are we ready yet, Mr.? Come on. I did let Logan in. I guess I can try again. Well, I don't know why Logan can't get in. I clicked on admit, so. Wait, I've got some kind of delay on the stupid. Looks like I'm moving in slow motion, huh?
Sanitization.
Tommy, mute yourself. You're talking and we don't need to hear you. Okay, now what I want to remind you of is, gosh, this is a crappy video. What is the problem? I'm so sorry, guys. Hold on a second. Let me see need to see what's going on. You would think with all the money I spend on internet that I'd have good connectivity, wouldn't you? Not too much to ask, is it? Okay, let's see if this is working a little better. All right, so remember that when we're dealing with slope, wow, this is really, is that looking as blurry and horrible to you as it is to me? Let's try writing. Well, I guess it doesn't look too bad once you're starting to go in. Okay, so what I want to remind you about is, so we talked about this back in first semester, all right? And we talked about how slope works. And remember that slope indicates what the line looks like, right? So if the slope is positive, it means the line is going to be going in an upwards motion like that. If it is negative slope, it starts high and then goes low, okay? So this could be a slope of, say, maybe a slope of a positive 1, and this could be a slope of negative 1, which is to say that every time that x changes, y changes by the same amount, but it goes down instead of up in value. So you can see here that as x, in this case, as x gets smaller, right? Or as y gets smaller, x gets larger, right? Because x is getting larger this direction, so its motion is going to be positive, but the y is coming down, right? So we end up with, for every 1x, change in y over change in x, it looks like this, right? So this internet is really starting to get on my nerves. Hold on a second, guys. I gotta see. Why isn't it showing any other? Well, I guess that's the best I'm going to get today. I don't know why this thing is all messed up, but anyway. All right. So when I see something, and so if I see something that looks like this, y equals 3x plus 1, we need to remember that this number right here is the slope. So remember that slope is the change in y over the change in x. All right. Now, remember, that's hard to remember because we're so used to thinking of x coming before y, right? And so this is one of those things that gets us on a regular basis. We want to put x on the top because we're like, well, x is the smaller letter, so it has to go on top. Not in this case, right? So we want to make sure that we keep that straight. So when I graph something like this, I have to find two things. First of all, I need to find out a point that I can graph first. Well, that's when we look over here, because this is the y-intercept. That is to say that when x is 0, y is going to be a positive 1. But this makes sense, right? Because if I put that x here as a 0, 3 times 0 is going to go bye-bye, and it's going to say y equals 1. So if I look at that on a graph, when x is 0, y is 1. And that's going to be where that first number that I can graph is going to be, right? Now then it says my slope is 3x, or 3, so that means the change in y over the change in x. So y is going to go up by 3, and it's going to go over by 1. So right now that dot is at 1, 3. And this is at 0, 1, right? Because when x is 0, y is 1. And if we look back over here, right? Oh, excuse me. My bad. Brain fart. My bad. It's 1, 4. I am very sorry, right? Because it has to go up by 3. And if it was already 1, then it'd have to be that. So if we plug this back in, if we plug x equals 1 here, I get 3 times 1, which is 3, plus 1, which would give us that 4. So we know that that point also is on that line, and we're going to be able to draw a line like that. Questions on that? Raise your, pop up a hand or throw something in the chat if you got a question on that. We're going to do a few more of these before I actually dive into the actual work, okay? I just want to review this. Give me a thumbs up if you remember doing this first semester. Thank you, Joe. Carson, good. Ella, thank you. Mia, good. Haley, thank you. Ariana, thank you. Wow, Tatum really loves my class. She's in here twice. Ayuba remembers. Tatum, I mean, I know I'm good, but come on. I mean, in twice, that's a little obsessive, I think. But hey, you know, whatever floats your boat. Yeah, it's not supposed to be hard, Gavin. It's supposed to be review. Hello, Tatum. How are you today? Oh, look at all the cool posters you've got. She's like, now I'm turning off my video, you creeper. You holding up okay, Tatum? Good. Okay, so let's do some more that are a little stranger, shall we? Again, I apologize for the crappy video. For some reason, my Wi-Fi in my house is not working that great. So I'm getting really low quality video being sent out. I apologize. So let's look at something weird like this. So if I have a question like this, remember in order to be able to graph this, the easiest way to graph it is if I can get this into slope-intercept form. Right, I want to get it into that form. You remember that form from before. So I need to rearrange these. Terms so that they look sort of like this, and then I need to get it reduced. So I'm going to have to move the 3x and the 6 over there. Now remember, there's two ways that we can do this. You can either subtract, so I could do subtract 3x and subtract 6. Or I can remember that when I move a term from one side to the other, yeah, Gavin, that's fine. If download it and work on it, okay? That's fine. If I just want to move them over, they just become negative on the other side. So it's going to end up looking like this. See if that makes sense. So basically this 3x moves over because when I subtract 3x here, they wipe out. When I subtract 6 here, they wipe out. But then I have to subtract 6 and subtract 3x over here. So there's two ways of looking at it. One is that I'm subtracting. The other is they move and change sign. So it really all depends on how your brain works. To me, it always made sense to me, the idea of they move and change sign. That just makes more sense to me than having to subtract everything. But admittedly, that's just sort of the way my brain works. Now, when I further look at this problem, I'm seeing that every coefficient is divisible by 3. So I'm going to divide every term by 3. Okay. Now, when I do that, I'm going to get y equals negative x minus 2. See if that makes sense. If you have any questions about that, please, 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 please put them in the chat.
Sure wish I could comb your hair, kid. It's so full of snarls. Maybe Aurora will comb it for you.
We're going to spare Caleb from, going to feel bad about Caleb having to have his mom say to comb his hair. Of course, we're happy that he's got his video blocked. That way we don't have to see what his mother is complaining about, because dang. So now again, I'm looking at my mx plus b, right? This is the slope. And this is the y-intercept. So if I look back at this problem and I draw my little graph, I can see right here, I'm going to go 0, and then I'm going to come over, I'm going to come to negative 2, right? Because when x is 0, y is going to be negative 2. So here's my first point. Now here, somebody tell me what the slope of this line is. You can throw it in the chat if you want, or you can unmute yourself and answer. Look at that equation. What's the slope of that line? Thinking about what we have up there. What number is in front of the x? What number is in front of the x? Right here. There's a 1 there, right? But it's also a negative, right? Now, the thing about negative slopes, if I have a fraction that's negative, okay, basically either the top can be negative or the bottom can be negative, okay? So I can write negative 1 as 1 over negative 1 or negative 1 over 1. It doesn't really matter. They're both accurate, because when I divide 1 by 1, I get 1. And when I divide a positive by a negative or a negative by a positive, I'm still going to get negative 1, right? So at this point on this graph, I can either decide to go over 1 and down 1, or I can go down 1 and over 1. I can do any way I want, okay? So I'm going to do change in y. I'm going to make, I'm going to do the negative 1 over 1, because I'm just making a choice. Does it matter which way I do it? No. Just make a decision and do that, okay? So my change in x is going to be a negative 1, which means I'm going to come back 1 over here, and then I'm going to go up 1. My graph is crappy. I've got some actual graph paper I'll start using when we start actually working the problems that are from the worksheet. So then I get this line that looks like this. Now I can double check to make sure I didn't screw up, because since my slope is negative, remember it starts high and it goes low. So at least I can be confident that it was supposed to be a negative, that I applied a negative slope in the proper way, right? If I'd forgotten to do one of these as negative, it would have ended up going this way. Questions at this point? Any questions? Toss a question in the chat if you want, or you can unmute yourself and actually talk, speak even. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the actual work at hand. So here's number 2 from the worksheet, all right? And so the worksheet that I posted for you guys has like 30 multiple choice questions and then 20 workout questions where you just have to graph it out. Now, don't panic, okay? When I give you 50 questions like that, my point is to give you enough stuff to do to keep you busy when you want to be busy, all right? And if you do 10 of them and you're like, oh crap, I got this totally down, great. Now go to some of the ones where you have to do a free response as opposed to a multiple choice and work some of those until you're confident that you're like, okay, I totally have this. There's so many pages, Nick, because basically it's graphs with multiple choice. So I wouldn't print it out, Nick. I would just view it on your computer or on your phone and just write down the equation and work it, okay? Yeah, when I looked at it and I saw it was 50 pages, I was like, crap, that's a lot of pages. But I wanted to give you the multiple choice because when you started working on it, it would be easier to answer the questions, right? I'm not trying to make this unpleasant. I'm just trying to make it easy to work with. So if you work through 5 or 10 of those multiple choice ones and you're like, okay, now I'm going to skip down to the other ones, well, then do that. It's all good. I trust you guys all year to do what you needed to do to be successful, right? And I think we've seen a lot of really good success. So I see no reason for me to change what I'm doing there just because now we're doing this remotely. To me, that just doesn't make any sense. So let's go look at this one. Now, a lot of times we get freaked out when the Y is on the wrong side or quote unquote on the wrong side. So we can fix that right away. I can go ahead and do this. It doesn't change anything, right? Because all I'm doing is I'm just flipping the problem around, right? And this is totally legal to do. Now, furthermore, I'm going to rewrite it again to make myself feel better. And I'm going to put it back in that mx, that y equals mx plus b form. Here's my slope, but wait a minute, there's more. Now how much would you pay? Okay, so I want that y to be just y. I don't want it 3y. So the way I'm going to get rid of that 3 is I'm going to divide everything by 3, okay? So now I get y equals 2/3 x minus 1. Now, I'm going to graph it with actual pretty graph paper. Ooh, sexy. Okay, now, here's my y-intercept, right? Because that third number, including its sign, is going to be where the line crosses the y-axis. Do I really need to go to 0 and then go up? No, I can just remember that here's -1 for y, right? And now I've got a slope of 2/3. So it's change in y over change in x. So it's going to go up by 2 and over by 3. Okay? So change in y, change in x. So it went up by 2 and over by 3. And there's my line. Questions on that? Does that make sense? Give me a thumbs up if that makes sense. Okay, Jill, thank you. Ella, thank you. Kaylee, Taylor, Ariana, Caleb, Ayumu, Mia, Karsten, good job. Thank you. Logan, you out there? Does that make sense, bud? Nick, you with us? Thank you, Logan. I just want to make sure I'm getting responses because since I can't see all your faces, which I respect, I wish I didn't have to show my ugly face every morning on this thing, but hey, they're kind of paying me to do that, right? Even though it's not very fair to you guys. Now let's go ahead and look at this one, shall we? This one's a little easier. I hope you can see that. So on this one, we want to rearrange it again, right? We don't like that we've got everything on one side, so we're going to have to move stuff around. So I need to move the 3x over, and I need to move the 15 over. Now, based on the way you think about how math works, I could either divide by 3 now, or I could divide by 3 later. It really doesn't matter. So if you wanted to, you could divide every term by 3 right now and you get x plus y plus 5 equals 0. You can do it later too. It just depends on how your brain processes it itself, right? But I'm just going to move these. Now remember what I said, if I move that 3x over, it becomes negative, right? Do you remember that? So I'm going to have 3y over here. I have my equal sign, and I have my negative 3x because when I moved it over to the other side, it became negative. The other way I can think about it is that I had to subtract 3x from both sides. And then minus 15. So now I've got 3y equals negative 3x minus 15. Now I should go ahead and divide both sides by 3, right? This will get me down to just having a y there. Tatum, you getting that? You look like I lost you there for a second. You okay? All right. So if I divide everything by 3, I get y equals negative 1x minus 5. Okay? Now I'm going to have to graph this again. Now, who wants to tell me what the y-intercept is for, somebody chat to me or unmute yourself, what is the y-intercept for this equation? What number am I going to use for this? What's the y-intercept going to be? Remember the y-intercept. Hold on. Hey there, I'm on class right now. What's up? No, it's okay. What's up? We already kind of passed that through our main conduit, and she's telling them what stuff we need to talk about. Katie? Yeah. Basically, it's on like evaluations and grading. We want to know what's going on with that. Just to make sure we get some clarification. Okay, I'll see you at 10. Bye-bye. Sorry about that, folks. That was one of the teachers. So what's the y-intercept going to be on this problem? Right, Jillian. So Jillian says -5. Does everyone else understand that it's going to be -5? Give me a thumbs up if you're like, oh yeah, it's -5. I get that. Okay. Here's my y-intercept because it's the number in the equation. All right. So I'm going to graph 1, 2, 3, 4, -5. And the slope on this is -1. Now remember, a slope of -1 is going to be either -1 over 1 or 1 over -1. It doesn't really matter, all right? Now, personally, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to do -1 over 1. So I'm going to do, this is y, this is x. So I'm going to go down. This is the one I'm going to use. So I'm going to go down -1. I'm going to go down 1 and over 1. Now, sometimes when you're graphing this, sorry about that. Sometimes you're graphing this and you have like a -1. You can also do like a -3. And I think that makes it easier to get a line that is better lined up. Okay, I'm going to use a strange straight edge nail file. How's that for improvisation? Now you see that when I did the -3, it was still the exact same line, wasn't it? Because it's a multiple of the other one, right? So there's my line. Now the slope was negative again, right? And since the slope was negative, the line also goes down to the right. Make sense? Okay. Let's take a look at a few of these that are actually on the sheet. Again, remember, I don't expect you to print these out, but let's go to some of the ones towards the end. So you see how this works? Uh-oh, that's who we lost. I knew we lost somebody, I just wasn't sure who. Now, let's look at this one, number 14. Now, when I work on number 14, I'm going to have to move that x over, right? Because it's a negative x, plus it's on the side with the y. If I move that negative x over, it becomes a positive x, right? So if it becomes a positive x, that means my slope for my answer is also going to be positive. Well, when we looked at this before, there are only two answers that have a positive slope here. Do you see that? A and C are both positive slopes because they start low on the left and they go high to the right. The other ones, B and D, both start high, go low. Those are negative slopes. So they can't be the answer for this. Now, what is the y-intercept for this equation? What's it going to be? Is that -4 going to move or get changed at all when we solve this? See, when I have that negative x plus y equals -4, right? I'm gonna move that x over, and it's going to become positive, and I'll get x minus 4. So the y-intercept for this question is going to be -4, right? Because that's the number that's right here. So let's go back to that problem again. Now you can see how here, up here, this goes through, y goes through a +4, but down here, you see how that goes through the -4. So C is going to be our right answer because it's got a positive slope and the y-intercept is -4. Questions on that? Everyone get that? If you don't get it, pop a chat out so I know that you're like, no idea. Okay, I'm going to assume that silence means we get it, so let's keep going. Let's find some more weird ones. Oh, goody, look at number 26. That just looks horrible, doesn't it? Now, let's do some work here, all right? Let me write this problem down here on my paper, then I'm going to switch back to my paper. Okay, I hope everyone got that problem written down. Just write down it's number 26. 2/3 y plus 4/3 equals 2x. You'll be able to see it on my paper when I flip back over to my document camera. Not trying to go super long on this today, guys, but I also want to make sure I give you enough examples that I don't set you loose, like I'm putting you in a little rowboat in the middle of the ocean, right? So now this looks intimidating because it's fractions, but we don't need to be intimidated by it. Now, this is not going to move, so our slope is going to be positive, right? Because there's a +2 in front of the x. So I'm going to move that 4/3 over. It becomes negative. Now I have 2/3 y equals 2x minus 4/3. Now, I'm going to remind you of something that we covered once before. When we have a fraction in front of a variable, you can either do it as a two-step where you first multiply by 3 and then by 2, but it's easier just to multiply by the reciprocal. which is how we divide by 2/3. If we divide by 2/3, we multiply by 3/2. Okay? Now, the 3 and the 2's cancel out. That leaves me with y. Here, the 2 is on the bottom, the 2's on the top. Those cancel out. I end up with 3x. I know that kind of looks like an exponent, but it's really just multiplying. Here, the 3's cancel. And then I can cancel out the 2, and this becomes 2. And now I have y equals 3x minus 2. Just waiting a sec for people to kind of write that down. Now I'm going to switch back over to the worksheet. Now let's look again at what we have here. Now we know that we've got y equals 3x minus 2. Now that means it's going to be a positive slope. So A, B, and D are possible answers. C can't be the answer because it's a negative slope. It starts high at the left, it goes low to the right. So it's going to have to be A, B, or D. Now, 3x tells us that we have every time y goes up by 3, x goes over by 1. Okay, so that's going to be a pretty steep slope. So it's going to be either A or B. Now, if it's just A or B, now we have to make sure that we have the right y-intercept. What was our constant when we simplified it? What did we have as a constant? So our constant is right here, correct? And that's our y-intercept. So that means that we're going to have a dot at y equals -2. So let's look back at the worksheet. And if you look at B, you can see that the line crosses at y equals -2. In A, it crosses at y equals 2. Well, we know that's not right because we have a -2 on the end of that equation now. And so that means that B must be our answer. So I think you can see that a lot of these you can work out without too much difficulty because on these, it's just finding out the right information, eliminating answers, all right? Now, let's go down towards the bottom. And yes, I know there's a crap ton of problems. I get it. Oh, why did those show the answers? They were supposed to have been turned off. Oh, it won't show it on yours. Well, anyway, let's take a look at this. These are some good examples. Look at number 57. X equals 0. Well, x equals 0. There's no y value given, right? That's because it's every y, because it tells you that right here is x equals 0, right? So every other number is going to be y. So that's going to be why we get that. If we look up 1, look at number 56. Y equals x plus 1. The slope is a positive 1, right? Because here's my x, and it doesn't have a number in front of it that we can see, therefore we know the number is 1. It's going to go up 1 and over 1, but it intercepts the y-axis at y equals 1 right here, right? So from there, we'd go up 1, over 1, and we'd get right there. Any questions on this material? Does this make sense? Give me a thumbs up if you're like, yeah, I can work on this. This isn't going to be hard. This is cool. Okay, Jillian says cool. Tatum says cool. Let's see. Kylie, Ella, Emilio, Taylor, Ayumu, Logan, Mia, Nick, good job. Thank you. Caleb and Ariana, I'm going to assume that this is okay for you guys as well. Okay. So let's, Karsten raised his hand. We're so happy. Do you have a question, Karsten? It won't let me unmute him. What the hell? God must really like us a lot. Okay,
No, I
Karsten.
don't have a question.
Okay, you were just saying you got it?
Yeah.
You can't unmute somebody if their hand is raised. How odd is that? All right, so there's a lot of problems. Do I need to worry about the fact that there's 50 problems? Do you ever have to worry about there's a lot of questions on my work? Never. You're going to do what you need to do. I'll be available for questions. I would not advise printing this. What a pain in the butt. I'd advise looking at it, working it out. On the first 30, you're going to use your logic. You don't have to actually calculate the answer right away. Many of them, you might be able to find the answer by just simply eliminating through process of logic, right? Be able to say, hey, this makes sense. It's going to be a positive. It's going to be a positive slope. Therefore, it's got to be one of these two answers, and all that. Nick, in terms of doing all the questions, my goal for this is, again, the goal for this work is not to give you a bunch of work to do, but rather to make sure that you understand the work. So I would say do 5 more questions past the point that you think you don't need to do it anymore, just to make sure it really makes sense to you, okay? Because it can be really easy for us to do some and go, oh, this is really easy. Then we do a few and we're like, oh, crap, maybe I should do some more. But either way is fine with me. I trust you guys to make good choices, and it should be fine. Okay? Any other questions, people? I know this is a long class this time. I've been keeping most of these classes pretty short, right? They haven't been super long. So, we good? Everyone good? All right. Have a great week. I hope you are managing to stay mostly sane. The real crazy person already left because Gavin's not here anymore. So go ahead and work on this stuff. Feel free to send me emails. If you've got my phone, feel free to text me. Would you guys like me to make up a group? Well, no, I still don't want you to contact me if your parents don't know about it. Anyway, your folks have my number, so if you need just to call me for a problem or you need to text me, please feel free to do so. But I gave them my number so that way people wouldn't think that I was like being a creeper and giving my phone number to all my students. Even though I think we know I'm not a creeper, but hey, people are weird about these things, okay? All right then, so our next class is on Friday. I doubt that I'm gonna give you more work on Friday unless people really want it. If people want it, I will do up some more work, but I think I'd rather have you guys not have work for the weekend because I think you can easily do these problems. And again, the point is not to drive you crazy. The quarantine and the stay-at-home orders are already doing a good enough job at that. So I don't think we need extra help to make ourselves crazier. And Karsten, of course, lost it a long time ago, which is why he's sitting in front of a sunrise. Like somehow we don't realize that the sun is fully up. Right. Good job. Okay, guys, I'll see you. Have a great day. And bon voyage. Yes? Bye.